Okay, now we're back. Second half of the Independent Producers Organization Live Showcase. And we need to introduce.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Rich, well, thank you very much. That
Bruce
was quite.
Broussard,
Yes.
Richard Carpenter, and you go ahead with
this segment of the deal, right? It's really a continuation of the last show that we had.
Okay.
And we had someone that was with Immigration Reform Group. He was on and talking about this issue of the open door policy that we have now. That we used to have a sanctuary state kind of a situation.
Yeah.
That was on the ballot, and there was a repeal process, and as a result of that, it still is enforced. There was a repeal by the organization of Immigration Reform folks. They put that piece together, and they were the primary aspect of it, and it didn't pass. So as a result of that, we still have sanctuary city. But at the same time, we've been having it for years, and a lot of folks just didn't know that it even exists. But with the advent of the national situation, with our present situation from a national perspective, President Trump is the president of the United States. So really, all of the attention has been from a national perspective and President Trump. And so anytime you mention the name Trump, automatically you vote just the opposite. And this state has been identified as a liberal state, i.e. anti-Trump kind of a situation. And the masses of the people, in many ways, a number of the people, are not even looking at even reading the ballots or anything of that nature. If the media in this and within this particular area were really anti-Trump, so to speak, that's the vote. And that's basically what most of the candidates or anybody who took issue with whatever issue it is, that was the vote. And so, but we still have the problem. And now we have an open door policy here in the state of Oregon, sort of like an ad. We got an ad out there around the country that says, "Come to Oregon, it's open." You know, you can, if you've done anything wrong or whatever, if you're legal or anything for that matter, you can come here. You got me? If you're homeless, you can come here. I mean, if you're out of work, you just come here. So it's just across the board. So anyway, we feel that's there. But my point is that there were some candidates that ran here within the major area where in most cases where most of the politics come from in the state of Oregon, Multnomah County and city of Portland and the Tri-County area, so to speak. And so bottom line is that what we've done tonight is that we got two guests that are on here now who are runners. They were from a congressional standpoint. They were on the Oregon Voters Digest and other shows. But my point is that they were responding to that issue with some of the most liberal guys who were already elected. There were two Republicans, and was it Schrader in one area, district number five.
Schrader, yeah,
Schrader, five, and then district number three with Earl Blumenauer.
Okay.
And those two guys are probably the most liberal guys, but they had most of the impact on this whole issue as I see it.
Yeah. So
what we're doing now is that these are two guys, and they're here now with us, and right up front with you, we got to address the issues, and as well as one says from one of the guys, Mark, who made the point when he was running in District 5, he made the point when he was being interviewed, win or lose, we're going to have to still address the issue in terms of what are we going to do, one way or the other.
Okay.
We have to address this issue. So consequently, we got to address the issue of the impact this is going to have, continuing impact on homelessness aspect of it, and illegal immigration and all this other stuff. Well, we've got to deal with it, okay? So on that note, invited them on tonight, and we'll be more than glad to invite the folks who are elected to office to ask them that question. Okay, what are we going to do? Are we prepared? How are we going to respond to this issue? Well, we haven't gotten any response from them because we invited them on the front end, but we got the two candidates that did run for 3 and 5, and these two individuals that are here with me right now. We want to welcome you guys to the show.
Well, thank you, Bruce.
And we just want to give you guys the opportunity. Hopefully you will run this next time around, and and hopefully you can maybe, now we want to spend the time. We got 2 more years, and we're going to do everything we can to give you get that out there, because we know the funding that it takes to normally run a successful. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, and so we're going to try to educate the majority of the people who voted. You got me? And we're going to stay away from the campaign from the folks from New York in the back east. You know, we're not going to be basically getting into the Trump arena. We're going to be talking about the issues as it relates to Oregon.
Yeah.
And that's really where we're going to be coming from. So with that, I want to welcome you aboard. We want to give each of you an opportunity to share with us whatever you want to share in regards to your campaign, its effectiveness aspect of it, and more specifically, if we can address the whole issue of this open door, this sanctuary state thing, and however you want to address that, whether it be immigration, whether it be the wall or whatever, you can share that, okay? So come up with an open station, each one of you can do that, and then we'll just kind of circle around and do it again. We got a good hour, so let's talk about it. Okay?
Sounds good. I can start out if you'd like. Or,
Sure.
So basically, what I'd like to talk about today is two issues and how they relate to people, how people view them, basically. So what is a country? What is a country? It's at the most basic level, what is a country? So is a country defined by its borders? Is that what actually makes a country? Or is it the people within those borders that make the country? So to have a country, I mean, most people would define a country by its borders and by the people that live within those borders. So in order to have that country, you have to have the borders, right? And so you have countries surrounding other countries as well. They all have borders. They kind of share borders with each other. So in my opinion, a country is defined by borders, and a lot of other people think a country is defined by borders as well. Well, in the state of Oregon and many places here in the U.S., some people think borders are racist. Well, when you say something is racist, you shut down the conversation. And when you associate, say, for example, Trump, I don't do this myself, when you associate Trump, the word Trump or the guy's last name, our president's last name, with borders, with with anything, people automatically assume that he's racist, and they accuse him of being racist, which he's not. He's a great guy, in my opinion. I support Trump myself. I voted for him. But the point is, Republicans here in Oregon, the Democrats, the other side, the left, associates all Republicans, no matter who they are, with Trump, like you were saying earlier. You have an R behind your name on the ballot. You're going to be associated with Trump. And as you stated earlier, Oregon is kind of an anti-Trump state in some respects, and consequently it's very, very hard for Oregons to win statewide or even in congressional districts in Oregon. So getting back to the whole border issue, if a country is defined by borders, are borders really racist? A border is like a wall or a fence, and again, that kind of goes along the line with national security too. At the very basic level, what is security? What is national security? You even take out the word national. Just say security. Is physical security included within the word security? So physical security would seem to indicate that there's some sort of physical barrier either that keeps someone in or keeps someone out. We have prisons that are designed to keep people in. We have borders, and we have border security that are designed to keep someone out. So that's security right there. Adding the word national to it, it basically enhances the word security, yes, but that's one of the basic responsibilities of our country. And last time I checked, our Constitution basically defines that. I carry one with me myself on what national security is and what the federal government's job in terms of national security is. So if we're not providing the national security, if we're not providing the physical security for our country and protecting our own borders, then do we even have a country? And should we even have a country in the future if we can't protect our own borders and we can't do a good job with national security? So we have Congresses of the past, and we have my opponent that thinks the wall is a stupid idea. He actually wrote it on his Twitter account.
Oh, really?
And he pinned it to the top. He said the wall is a waste of money. I disagree with him. And the point is, unfortunately, more Oregonians agreed with him. I did get about 150,000 people that did agree with me, though, just shy of that by about 113 votes. But the way I see it is this. I've always been the type of person to make lemonade out of lemons, and I figure there's at least 149,887 people out there that wanted me to represent them as their congressman in Oregon's 5th Congressional District. Oregon's 5th Congressional District covers about 7 counties: Marion, Polk, Lincoln, Tillamook, and Clackamas County. About 83% of Clackamas County, a little bit of Multnomah on the south, and a little bit of Benton County on the north. So what I did during the campaign, I traveled all throughout those counties. I like going to the coast myself, Got really close in some of those counties, within 1,000 votes. I know I got really close in Benton County, but within 1,000 or a little bit over 1,000 votes in other counties as well. Clackamas County, the metro area here, I needed to improve a little bit more. I think I lost about 30,000 votes in Clackamas County, being that's kind of the Portland metro area. Marion County, I lost by a little bit there too, but I probably need to improve as well. But the point is, I think we need to get beyond partisanship. We need to get beyond whether you have a D behind your name, whether you have an R behind your name. Because right now in our state of Oregon, there are three major groups in Oregon. You have the Republicans, you have the Democrats, and you have the one of the second largest growing groups in Oregon is the non-affiliated voters. So what we need to do is break down problems at the very basic level, not patronize people by any means, not claim that they're somehow less intelligent, which they're not. Oregonians are very, very intelligent, and they pay attention to the issues, but for some reason when it comes down to the actual physical act of voting, a lot of people just see the D's and the R's, the D's and the R's, and if they're not an R, then they'll vote for the D. If they're not a D, then they'll vote for the R. But we need to get beyond that. We need to break things down at the most basic level in terms of what is a border, what is security, and how can we relate those two terms to people's lives on a personal level, on how not just some sort of national nebulous level. How can we relate that on a personal level to people and how it's going to affect them? You stated like, well, you're running for office. What are you going to do for me? People, it's always, what are you going to do for me as a candidate, as a politician when you get in there? That's what it's about to people voting. But for some reason, it comes down to, well, this person has a D behind their name, this person has an R behind their name. You know, which do I associate with? Granted, voters' guide statements are good, and TV ads are good. I did run TV ads on a public access channel down in, I think, the Salem area, Channel 17 for a while. I put up electronic billboards on I-205 and I-5 myself, and I did plenty of radio ads and radio interviews and stuff like that. But and we got close. We got about 150,000 votes. But the point is, I think next time what we need to focus on is how we're going to personalize it. How can we personalize it and not just be some sort of nebulous term? How can we talk to people one-on-one more and better in terms of personalizing the issues that's going to affect their lives? Because anybody can talk about national security. Anybody can talk about borders and building a fence or a wall or whatever. But how is that going to affect us here in Oregon? Because we're not on the border, but yet we're getting the people coming in illegally to our country from the border because we're a sanctuary state.
Okay. All right. Tom.
Okay.
Right.
How'd you do? How'd you feel about it?
Well, let's see. I got the second highest number of votes against Blumenauer in the 22 years he's been in office. That's not bad. I got 75,000 votes. Lost in Multnomah County, which is not too surprising given the tremendous large number of Democrat voters in Multnomah County. I'm told I won in Clackamas County by a reasonable margin. So we have a stab at it. At any rate, we're going to arrive at pretty much the same conclusions. I get there a little differently. When I began my political life, it was thinking about things from the perspective of individual human rights. And these are rights that are inherent in us that we've had since we were throwing rocks at each other. These are not rights invented by government, but they're rights that can either be acknowledged by government or not. Now, the first major assertion of a declaration of human rights was the Declaration of Independence, which said people have certain rights that they cannot have taken away from them. Right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is what the Declaration said. But then it went on to say, is to protect these rights that governments are instituted among men. That's the focal point. That this government, this new government, was going to protect those rights, the rights that people have inherent in them. And that should be something that no matter what party you're part of, that should be something we agree on. That is, after all, our foundational document, but it goes farther back than that. It's not just depending on the Declaration, it's depending upon the understanding of human nature and the fact that if we live and breathe, we have a right to life, and along with that goes a right to the property we have that's legally collected. So all of the things that we have as rights are part of us. And it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter what you are, those rights still should be the core of the conversation. And that's where I started the conversation last time. In this last cycle, I was talking about is the two principal issues, taxes and immigration and border security. And the problem's still with us. In fact, the problems are amplified now with this a little bit of blue wave in Oregon, and certainly with the arrival of the caravans at the southern border and the amplification of the problem there. So those problems are still with us, and they're not going to get better on their own. With regard to taxes, first, the smaller issue first. After 35 years of studying economics and the principles of taxation, I came up with essentially a bumper sticker way of expressing it. All taxes tax the poor. Because it doesn't matter who writes the check, what matters is who pays the price. So whenever somebody is taxed, they adjust their behavior in order to remove some of the impact of that tax. One cliche way of discussing it is if you tax a rich guy, he fires the landscaper. And that's a cliche way of talking about it, but nevertheless, it conveys a fact. When you tax an entity, that entity is going to reduce its costs somehow in order to deal with that tax. So if it's a company, they fire people. Or they make them work longer hours. Whatever it is, they're going to adjust their behavior. And everybody who is the recipient of that adjustment is going to do the same. Well, now, who can't adjust? The people with nothing, no discretionary income at all, the poorest in our society, they can't adjust, so they go without food instead of going without a vacation. So whenever you levy a tax, it's going to affect every strata in the economy, but the people who get hurt the worst are the ones who can't adjust. So taxes ought to be something, when you're levying a tax, when you're contemplating a tax, it ought to be recognizing that it's going to hit everyone. Right now you have Salem going nuts thinking of new ways of tax. California had this ridiculous idea of taxing text messages, for crying out loud. Now the FCC has shot them down because it's not within their review, but nevertheless, they'll tax anything they can. Look at what's happening with tolling in the Portland area. What do? The first they get is absolutely dependent upon those freeways because they're the only freeways we've got. And now they say, oh, by the way, now we're going to start charging you to drive on them, besides the gas tax you already pay. The taxation that they're going to do there is going to hurt the people who are at most dependent upon those freeways and cannot escape them. The 9-to-5 worker, and in particular among them, the poorest workers who drive to work because they can't get there on the bus. Anybody who's ridden the bus or ridden MAX knows there's only a certain core transit path you can follow to get the buses or MAX to do you any good. The poorer you are, the less likely you are to work in the downtown core. More likely you'll live in the outer area and you'll work in some outer area, and they don't connect well. I had a friend who lived in North Portland for years, and when he came out to see me, it took him 3 hours on the bus. By car, it was 25 minutes. So when you have somebody who has one job or perhaps two, MAX and the buses don't help them. They may be trapped in them, but more likely they'll find a car and get there. So what do the taxes do on tolling? Hurt those people the worst. If people didn't have to drive in the rush hour, they wouldn't. I mean, I've been independent for years, running a business from my home, and when I go to see a client, I always arrange my timing so I'm not in rush hour. Makes sense? Yeah. I can do that because I'm independent, and I can set my clock. But 9-to-5 worker can't do that. At the upper end, people have flex time. At the lower end, no, you don't. You have shift work. So the issue of taxation needs to still be addressed. And it affects everybody. It affects the schools. If you have taxation in the schools that are funding the schools, what happens to the schools? They cease to be competitive because they don't have to compete for the tax. When you add charter schools, everybody rises because they don't have to compete for that tax. So taxation is a sensitive issue because it affects everyone. No matter how you levy it, it hits everybody, and you need to be careful because it's going to hurt the poor the worst, which I guess is why we have more poor people now than we had when the war on poverty began, which was my first liberal advocacy was for Johnson's war on poverty. And a relative of mine shot me down with a few words. He said, as I said, businesses weren't paying their fair share, and that's why the war on poverty wasn't working. He said, "Tom, you're an idiot." I said, "What do you mean?" Now, mind you, I'm a sophomore at Dartmouth College. I'm getting an Ivy League education. I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. And he tells me I'm an idiot. Well, I don't take that very well. I said, "What do you mean, calling me an idiot?" And he said, "Pay attention. I've had a business in Portland for 25 years, and I've never paid any taxes." I said, "You should be in jail." He said, "No, pay attention. I don't pay any taxes. My customers pay my taxes." That caused me to turn conservative at that moment. It took me less than 30 seconds. I was stumbled backwards. I couldn't speak for that time, as all of my understanding of economics up to that point as a college sophomore rolled off. And I realized he was right, that customers do pay the taxes, and the next 35 years was spent trying to understand how taxes affected other entities other than just companies, because doctors are companies too, but then again, even a person who is an attorney will adjust his behavior to a tax. So everyone adjusts if they can. So that led me to the understanding that it all filters out. In a few cycles of the economy, the taxes spread fully across every strata in a percentile fashion, and of course the poor get hurt the worst. So that's the least of the issue. The bigger issue is, again, based on personal rights. I start my journey through understanding of rights, for understanding of an individual, the inherent rights now that are the Declaration acknowledges, and take that to a community. Because what does the Declaration say? It says governments are instituted to protect those rights. Okay, that goes from hiring a sheriff in a little town of 30 people or whatever it is, and going upward from there, until now we have this huge country with representatives, and we try then to protect those rights that individuals have, and individuals, when they incorporate, when they gather together, either a city, a county, a state, or the country, the rights are still there. They still need to be protected by that governance. Plus, the governance of the whole also has that. So if you have a right to lock your door, then we have a right to lock our border. Same principle. If somebody breaks into your house, you can take action to get them rejected. Same is true at our border. So all the things that we exercise as a country should be based upon the same personal rights individuals have, writ large across a representative body. So the issue at the border now, people are trying to invade. This is why Trump sent the troops. They can't operate for border patrol, that's a posse comitatus issue, but they certainly can act to repel invasion, and which is what he's saying. So you can't let them come in. It's an invasion. So those things are still the case.
Okay. All right.
So taxes and immigration, this idea of a sanctuary, we got Sergio Martinez because of sanctuary state. Well, actually, sanctuary county too, or sanctuary city. The only reason he was running around loose was because Oregon didn't feel obliged to assist in the repelling of an invasion. He had been already expelled from the country, so entering the country again was a felony. And Oregon said, "Oh, no, we're not going to worry about that." Excuse me? It's a felony.
Times, yeah. 12 times.
Yeah, well, yeah, his encounters with the police, he had quite a few. So that's the sort of issue that makes the sanctuary issue, to me, is an obstruction of justice, because the state government, or in this case, or the city government, is proceeding to obstruct the handling of U.S. law, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So that's where I said personal rights, and I would think that those rights issues should cross the party lines.
Okay. Well, we got the intro.
I wanted to ask about independent. Isn't that significant, or are you throwing in all the Green Party and everything?
Well, no.
Other
There's
blocks.
definitely different parties in Oregon. There are people that want to be independent. There's actually an independent party of Oregon.
Right.
It's smaller, but I mean, it's and then you have the Green Party and Libertarian and Constitutionalists and stuff like that. So you have all these other party affiliations. But what I was referring to specifically is the non-affiliated voters, which has ballooned in
They aren't
recent.
even registered.
Yeah, they're not affiliated with a party,
yeah.
and that's mostly come in recent years from the motor voter,
Right.
basically.
Right. Exactly.
And where people are automatically registered to vote when they get their driver's license at DMV. And so that's what I was referring to, Richard. So,
I think that's forcing them
yeah.
to vote or doing something. I just, why can't they do it on their own?
Exactly. I mean, it's. I think it's overreach personally. I mean, I think that the state basically is saying, well, we're going to make this choice for you if you're not going to make the choice at all,
Yeah,
and
for the wrong thing.
that's not right. And to kind of dovetail off of Tom's issue with taxation, it almost seems like taxation is basically the state or local or federal or something like that saying, how can we get a piece of the action? You know, how can we get a piece of the action?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of equates with extortion a little bit, but I mean, it basically says, well, how can we get a piece of the action so we can pay for the people that are coming into our country illegally?
Right.
And to kind of add to what I was saying earlier, you know, about borders, is there anything really racist regarding a country's borders? You know, the other side will say, oh yeah, borders are racist. We can't have the wall because that's racist, because it's being put forward by Trump, and apparently, according to the left, not me, according to the left, Trump is apparently racist, but I haven't seen that myself, especially with African American unemployment being way down since Trump came to office, Latino unemployment being way down since Trump came to office. But the point is there anything racist about actually having a border? Which I would say it's not racist. I think the word racist is just basically a way for the other side to shut down conversation.
Well, just on a
That's
point,
right.
just on a
That's it.
point on that piece, that when you think about it now, the media made the word Trump a household name,
Yeah.
and there was a definition that went with it.
Well,
you
it's
brought
something
Trump up,
they
and
defined,
and it's
yeah.
easy to do, very
Yeah.
easy to do. And then it's not about reading all of the other copy now. It's just Trump. Trump says no to you. You get the cheese.
Yep. There you go.
Otherwise, you don't get it. You know what I mean? So that's why we are now, and that's why I'm saying that's why we need to start now running for office,
Yeah.
and to start educating the public about what was going on. But we got to make sure that we educate them about the standpoint of how it affects them.
Yeah. Well,
The
yeah,
voters.
exactly. I mean, you have to personalize.
You got to personalize it big time, because they personalized, again, that's why they were successful, because they personalized the name Trump.
Exactly. I mean, to kind of go off of what I was saying earlier, Bruce. I mean, there's nothing racist about
No,
determining
no, man.
who can cross your border
No,
or who can live in your country, and there's nothing racist about citizens demanding that their
yeah,
government
yeah.
protect them from
Yes,
terrorism or
yes,
terrorists
yes,
that are
yes.
crossing the border. I'm not
Yes.
saying that everyone crossing the
Yes,
border is a
yes,
terrorist. I'm not
yes, yes,
saying that at
yes,
all.
yes.
But the point is, our government is currently failing
Yes.
in the most basic of needs,
Yes.
which is national security and actually protecting what our country is, i.e. defined by a
Yes.
border.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I personally support the wall myself. My previous opponent, Trader, he actually wrote on his Twitter feed, the wall's a waste of money or a stupid idea or something. You can look it up himself. He has it pinned to the top.
But
he
he
did
was
anyway.
saying Trump.
Yeah, exactly. And he associated me with Trump. And yeah, I voted for Trump.
Yep,
I went to Trump's nominating convention. I went to his inauguration.
Oh.
Great experience.
Right.
But the
But I
point is,
think-
I mean, I'm
but
there
you-
to offer solutions to Oregonians
Right, but
as well.
your definition of Trump, as I see it as an elected official, someone running for office, is that in order to vote in our country, you have to be a registered somebody, a legitimate registration piece.
Yeah.
Well, in the
You-
general election,
Right.
yeah.
You are a registered Republican.
I am, yes. yes.
Okay, and the household name, again, the brand with Trump is at any aura is a Trump.
They associate it
Right.
with it, yeah.
But you know, you can be a non-affiliated voter and be a Republican. A lot of them ran that way.
Yep, that's right.
They're sitting in there,
Yeah.
and a lot of these who were conservative ran that way because they didn't like the idea of some of the things that were happening in the D. They didn't like Hillary because Hillary was a brand in many ways too. You got me? So now the key is to educate. Let's get this brand off the table now. The Hillary off the table, the Trump off the table, and talk to the issues. You want to say something?
She won't get off the table.
No, we know that. But my point is that. But my point is that you guys are running for the issues in Oregon.
Yep.
So will the sanctuary state and the immigration issues impact Oregon?
Yes,
or
it will.
not? That's the
they are, of
question.
course.
It will, because
So
even though
what-
we're
so
you-
so how is that going to do that? So you're telling the people so they can relate to that. Say this is you got to be talking to them.
Yep. Even though we're not on the border, we get the effects of it because people come up through California, another sanctuary state,
Right.
and come to Oregon.
But specific,
A
but
whole
specific.
state.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but specific. Okay, I've been doing this for now. All of a sudden, I'm out of business as a result of that.
Yeah.
There's that.
I've been working highway work, and all of a sudden, I don't have the job. I go to one company that, like Richard had made the point about that in some cases on the private side, the verify was voluntary. That's the first time I'd heard of that piece. Well, if that's the case, we got to get that legitimate now. We got to say, okay, fine. So what are the repercussions? Because in all due respect, the businessman, because we are a capitalist society, we're looking at the bottom line. And if I can get away with it to make a few bucks, just like they basically took the kids from picking the berries and said, okay, fine, I'll take the kids from getting the berries and I can get this low-income guy that somebody, some immigrant were able to put a bus together and get guys from the border to come in and work for $2 an hour or $2
Well,
a
the
pay.
kids got less than that.
No,
so
but
they
I'm
can't-
just
yeah.
saying. But you see my point.
E-Verify probably gets held up in committees somewhere. That's probably what's happened.
Right,
to
but
it
my
every
point is
time.
that, but it hasn't, nothing's happened. So that needs to be cleaned up.
Exactly. Well, you have to
Right.
think about it a different way too. I mean,
Right.
the other side, and I know the Republicans back in the 1800s basically were the ones that passed the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendments, anti-slavery, basically to stop slavery in our country. And so you have to think about it that way too. I mean, if you have people coming in illegally and these businesses are taking advantage of them by literally paying slave wages.
Yeah.
We have modern day slavery going on now. We have modern day indentured servitude going on right now. So that's something you can relate, because the other side will say, oh no, we can't have slavery, we have to have equality and multiculturalism and stuff like this. You know, we can't be oppressing people, you know, because the other side is all about the victim mindset about in terms of not oppressing people. So if we can relate people like, well, these businesses are paying these illegal immigrants or illegal aliens slave labor wages, then we have modern day slavery. So we can get the other side on the table and talk about it and prevent them from saying, oh yeah, well that's just racist. Well, the point is we have to eliminate saying it's just racist, because it just shuts down conversation.
See, in all due respect, that's another branding that we still haven't solved that problem.
Yeah.
When you say racist, normally it's associated with black. Automatically, you're racist to a
Well, we have
black.
our country has
It's
a
a
history
black.
of it. Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
black
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then, so my saying is that, okay, fine, there's an issue right now that's on the table as it relates to, and I'm using the word, the R now. I'm using Trump, because they just threw out on the table, there's something on the table right now, talking about reform in the criminal justice system. It's just come out today, so to speak, okay?
Well,
And now it's a bipartisan deal right now, and look like they've gotten the votes. It's just a matter of, i.e., the leadership in the Senate, and now he's looking like he's making statements. Right? Yes, we need to do something. Need to pass this.
You got to
thing.
pass in the next 2 weeks, basically.
Then,
Yeah.
see, here we are coming from. So now one needs to take credit. The R's need to take credit from the standpoint. If we do this, because they're the majority now, right? We're going to take credit of that if, in fact, this thing passes, because it's impacting blacks, i.e., dealing with the race piece. That's a block of vote. Because Booker is, I think it's a guy named Booker. I think
Cory Booker, yeah.
Cory
Yeah.
Booker from Chicago or Detroit, or one of those areas down there. He's a senator, and he basically was kind of like, I heard him as a spokesperson, so he's probably he kind of in that. But the fact of the matter is, because of who he is, now all of a sudden he's agreeing with Trump. Trump got on the table and said, yes, I think we need to do this. So now we have to take, but then we got, like I said, we do have some auras that are opposing that.
Find things
No,
that bring us together, basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my point is that take advantage of those issues. That's what I'm saying. So I'm just bringing that up because that was just current news. So the same thing with reference to the immigration piece. The whole issue of illegal, in all due respect, is not just the border to the south. We got a border to the north. That's more of an issue.
Like
on this
Canadians,
whole-
yeah.
Yes, you know what I'm saying?
That's a problem
You see
too.
what I'm saying? But then here we go again with the skin color thing. You got my point? So my point is that it's a mess right now. So we need to take advantage of those issues about what hits my pocketbook.
Yeah, we got to break it down to the most basic level.
Yeah.
For example, I mean, the way we can break down the border to the most basic level is this. So you're living in your house, right? You have a fence around your house. You have your yard there. Your dog is out in the yard. Your kids are out in the yard playing out in their playground equipment or whatever it is. I had a house at one time with a yard and a fence and stuff like this, right? Well, if you see someone coming over your fence to want to steal your dog or hurt your daughter or something like that, then you don't want that to happen. You got to be able to protect your house and protect your yard. And the same thing goes in the middle of the night. If you're dead asleep in the middle of the night and someone breaks into your house and you get the call from the security company saying, oh, we had a sensor go off or something like that, well, you don't welcome the person into your house because you don't know what they're there to do. They could be armed, they could be not armed, they could be there to hurt your daughter. I have a couple daughters myself. I know that I would immediately take action if someone broke into my house or break and entering into my house. A lot of people understand what the term breaking and entering is. It's a crime. It's a felony. And so just expand that to analogously to a national level. Someone breaks into your house by climbing, or breaks into your country by climbing over your country's fence or breaking into your country's, through your country's door lock. Of course, we have our own sensors and our own alarm agency here. We call it Border Patrol, and then we have the that's being supplemented by, in a support level, by our military.
Good.
But the point is, someone climbs over our fence, which we see all the time on the news. People climbing over our fence in our country and breaking into our house, i.e., breaking and entering. That's a crime. And so, if they're willing to commit a crime to be in our country in the first place, we don't want criminals here. That's what the left basically doesn't understand.
But the media now,
the media will spin it.
We won't say the left. Now again, I'm gonna be the advocate on the other end of it. When one says caravan, the moment the word that identifies with that culture is the Mexicans, the Mexicans, the illegals. I mean, I'm just saying the illegals.
It's not all Mexican.
No, but I'm just saying.
That's mostly not.
But I'm just saying how the picture gets played out there. That's the deal that you guys are going to have to counter.
Yeah, and then they spin it to be something
That's
racist.
right.
Yeah,
and
and
so
then they shut down conversation.
Because there are individuals who own those medias, you know.
Yeah.
And they're right here that Willamette Week and whatever,
Oh,
you know.
yeah, they don't like me over there.
And you know, in all due respect, when I look at that culture, in all due respect, they're Jewish. They own that. They own that newspaper. Yeah. You see what I mean? But I'm just giving you the idea of how it's not about race. It's about that money. In the aspect of it, always about the money aspect of it. So, but my point is that we got to get that aside so we can deal with the real issue.
Exactly.
This is the greatest country in the world for everybody, for that matter. We've educated the world.
Well, I mean,
most cases we educate these folks. They go back to their areas, and the whole idea they're supposed to develop economics and this, that, and the other. Then we do through trades, and everybody's happy.
To kind of tie
But
that
right
into
now,
the
these folks are kind of like saying, well, a lot of them are here, and guess what? When I go back, when I get through getting trained here and getting educated, I'm going to run my dictatorship.
Oh yeah.
to kind of tie that into the whole extortion thing we were talking about earlier. I read in the newspaper today. I mean, the caravan folks are saying, "Well, give us $50,000 and we'll go back home."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have people. If we do that, for one, it would be a huge mistake. And basically, you have people from other countries all around the world saying, well, all we have to do is go to the U.S. border and demand $50,000, and we'll get a free $50,000.
What about the folks here? They'd be demanding $50,000 each.
It's basically extortion by this caravan for the U.S.
Yeah,
And, I mean, the point is we can't allow extortion to happen, whether it be taxation or whether it be invaders from another country.
But how do we deal with it? I'm still throwing that on the table.
What's that?
Where did you hear that?
I heard it.
it's
In the
It was in
newspaper.
the
It's on
news.
Fox
It was in
News
the-
too,
it was in the
and
news.
other news sources as well.
But they're
so,
playing it,
yeah.
see? And that's what they're saying.
It's a
okay,
subset of the caravan
they're
group.
playing it, and then guess who they look for as far as the answer? Oh, it's the racist over there. His name is Trump. You got me? Trump, give him the $50,000 apiece. You can afford it. You can afford it. You know what I'm saying? And he is not the you. There's no such thing as no man's an island. You've heard that before.
The government gets its money from taxation.
The government
So
is-
basically, if we start giving $50,000 to people that are invading our country,
Yeah.
our taxes are going to go up
Yeah,
in
my
order to cover
pocket,
that 50.
my pocket.
Yeah,
You
the
got my point?
pocketbook. Yeah,
The
exactly.
pocketbook.
They already are.
But in some cases,
Because
in
of
all
that.
due respect, in some cases, from a business standpoint, oh, it's a good write-off for me. just pouring it over here in the media piece. I mean, it's a mess right now, and we got to get back into just common sense stuff. That's why we're talking about it the way we're talking about it. We're not trying to take sides. We're saying, look, there's an issue here. We're all individuals.
Yep.
We all have to eat.
Yes.
Some have gone. Some of us has gone to school H. Some of us gone to school A. Some have not gone to school, and we've got to work it way that everybody feels comfortable with whatever they do, and respect that so-called ladder.
Not everybody is going to be comfortable.
No, but it's not. No,
That's
right.
right.
You know, either way, because a guy can out here nowadays, you can put $1 on a lottery ticket, and all of a sudden you get in another tax bracket, and you're more conservative than anyone else because I want to keep my money. In fact, you can buy the conservatism because once you get the money, they will be at the door saying, "I can save you some money." Am I right?
Except the very richest people in the United States are actually liberal, not.
Oh yes, oh yes. Oh, well,
With
can
the exception, I mean,
oh yeah, I know who you're talking about right now.
well,
But I'm just.
you look at like we have DeVos in the Secretary of Education, and that family and the DeVos and Van Andel families own Amway.
You got Coke. You got Cokes, and you got the. You know, but my point is that
they're a mixed bag. They're mostly.
But that's the way we are. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's who we are here in this country. It's a fact. And anybody can get up there. Sometimes, in most cases, you have to be born with it. You know, so for every loss, there's a gain. For every gain, there's a loss.
I don't think that's true. I think most of the millionaires in the United States now are self-made.
What's that?
I think most of the millionaires in the United States
Well, I'd
today
be more glad to be self-made as my father made the money.
Well, that's not self-made. Most millionaires in this country have it's a new millionaire, not inherited wealth.
Well, I can imagine, but there was a loss somewhere to create that person. Some way, shape, or form. I look at it.
Yeah.
For every loss, there's a gain. For every gain, there's a loss.
You look at the richest people in the country now. You look at FedEx. You know, Jeff, is it Smith? Smith is FedEx. Bezos, of course, Amazon. Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Paul Allen. That was all new wealth.
Yeah, but
And it was new wealth created from nothing.
okay.
So it wasn't investment wealth; it was service wealth, which that's a big deal.
Okay, but my point, they had to organize that piece. I mean, there were some losses for someone to gain.
No.
There were gains and losses.
No, that isn't. That isn't so. Nobody lost it.
I do know some of the folks who lost in Nike.
Okay, I didn't mention Nike.
The folks who were doing the running.
Okay,
shoes.
they're okay.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
I got it.
They weren't part of the.
But you look at Microsoft, the software industry associated with operating systems and browsers and so forth that Microsoft's part of, that didn't really take away from anybody else, although he did buy and sell companies along the way. But the industry itself has grown so large that there isn't anybody who could say he made me stop because of what he did.
Well, a lot of millionaires were created as a result of that.
Very true.
Yeah, a lot of folks were. I'm just saying. I don't.
So it's
I
not,
hear what you're saying.
It's not a win-loss like the stock market is win-loss. For the stock market, every stock transaction you got a winner and a loser.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, futures is even more so. Futures is very definitely a somebody wins, somebody loses on every futures transaction.
Okay.
But when you get into business, this is being created from a whole cloth. The work that I do when I serve my customers is brand spanking new.
Mm-hmm.
If I build a controller for them, or I write some software, I didn't take anything from anybody. Nobody else lost.
Mm-hmm.
That customer paid me to provide them a service, and we both came out ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So they won because they had something more than they wanted than the money, and I won because I didn't want that software as much as I wanted their money for writing it. Okay, so that's a win-win.
Okay.
It's not a win-loss. I mean, like there are transactions where people do lose, but that's more related to the ownership of companies, stock market, and futures, and so forth.
Okay. Now, again, I know this is a short time. But let's put it this way: you got Joe Blow A over here.
Okay.
He barely graduated from high school.
Okay.
You got Joe Blow B over here, whose parents are in a position to send him to college.
Well, should we talk about the number of people who don't have a college education and build businesses?
But those are the people who are voting. I'm talking about the ones who didn't have the opportunity. Those are the voters.
They both vote. Yeah.
Those are the small 10% isn't the people we're talking to right now.
Well,
That-
entrepreneurs
that
are in the small 10%
that didn't
anyway.
support you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
See, but they're still having an impact on their life too. Whether it be the criminal justice system or this, that, and the other, we got this whole block of folks. Some way, shape, or form, we got to make it sense for everybody. They say, respect you for doing what you're doing, no problem. We used to have that at one point in time. There was no issue. You know, some people lived on that side of the track, some people lived on this side of the track, but a person was able to feed their family. A person was able to do
you want me
this,
to address
do
that?
No. I'm just
Because
sharing with you.
I'll address
Well,
it the same way I'll
it's-
address everything else.
Yeah,
Is
but-
the
but
basic
it's
rights
hard,
of those people
but-
need
yeah,
to be
but-
defended.
No, but all I'm saying to you in so many words, you can't, you know, the guy who's down at the bottom, it's hard as hell to tell him that, you know what, you came up the same way I did. It didn't work that way.
I agree. Didn't work that way.
To sell them that point, you got to show that their lifestyle is just as well, you know, just, you can, he's making a living at one level. He's buying maybe excuse the French, one pork chop, you buying the whole hog. And he still feel comfortable, you can only eat one at a time. That's the way I look at it. I mean, we're just talking right now.
Yeah.
But we're getting away from the issue here. I'm still saying you guys are going to be running for office for Oregon. You just went through a race. You got my point? And the issue here now is that the person has been elected. The issue, as far as I'm concerned, is still open. No one is talking about where do we go from here in the state of Oregon with this whole issue of sanctuary state and the illegal immigration piece. That's what Richard was talking about. That's where his head's at. And he's still asking that question. What are we going to do about this problem? Because it's affecting his pocketbook. It's affecting all kinds of issues. Everybody's issues. So how do we address that? I'm getting right back to the table.
Get our money back, basically. Your previous guest was talking about remittances in terms of using those remittances to other countries in terms of paying for the wall, for example.
Right.
Well, I mean, you can tax those remittances to other countries, get some of our money back to recoup some of the costs of paying for illegal immigration. If we're going to have illegal immigration and illegal aliens that are crossing our border illegally, then, and obviously Oregon spoke in the last election that they wanted to keep illegal aliens here, much to my chagrin. I was against the illegal alien being here in the first place. Well, then if we're going to have illegal immigration and illegal aliens here, then let's find some way of recouping our costs by taxing remittances in terms of
the people who hires them.
Yeah, remittances.
It's just a huge amount of money.
Yes.
Well,
that goes back
remittances
to these
basically.
countries.
That's right.
What I'm referring to is the illegal aliens that come here and then they send money back to their own country.
Yes, that's right.
So, say for example, let's see if we can work out a deal with, say, Western Union or MoneyGram or something like that to say, okay, so if anybody sends money from Oregon via Western Union or MoneyGram or whatever, and they're sending it to these specifically defined countries, say Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, or whatever, wherever this caravan is coming from, and to try to break into our country illegally. Let's tax a little bit of that money to kind of recoup the costs of those illegal aliens being here in the first place.
It's a good idea if you just can do it.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you have to be flexible and adjust. And basically, they said Oregonians voted to maintain Oregon as a sanctuary state. Well, how are we going to respond to that? Well, we have to find some way of recouping the cost, because right now the cost is $130 billion for our country every year.
I agree.
Even though the wall only costs $5 billion, the other side's bucking it right now, basically.
Yeah.
And so how can we recoup some of that cost in terms of lessening it for illegal aliens being here? It doesn't actually stop the problem. Maybe it'll do it by attrition.
Yeah, you're not going to be learning totally right.
By people saying, well, if we're going to be taxed on the money we send back to our country, then maybe we may not want to come here to the country illegal in the first place. I doubt that's going to happen, because they're still going to come here illegally. But the point is, how can we recoup some of that cost?
I got to get my 2 cents in here.
Yeah.
What's your 2 cents?
About 13 years ago, I sat down and had lunch with the Mexican consul to Oregon, and it was a small meeting, about 15 people sitting and having lunch.
Okay.
Now, this guy's University of Chicago educated at the time. He's no longer in office, but University of Chicago, PhD in economics.
Okay.
No dummy. Okay.
Okay.
And I asked him a simple question. I said, why does the Mexican government help people approach and cross our border and gain services inside the United States illegally?
Okay.
He said, it's not illegal for us to do that. He's quite correct. In Mexico, it's not illegal. So what they're doing is deliberately pushing people across the border. They've been doing it for a long time. That's not a very neighborly thing to do. With the caravan, they facilitated the movement of the caravans from their southern border.
Who did?
Mexico did.
Oh, really?
Oh, sure they did.
That's not what they've said in the news.
Well, they didn't continue to oppose them once they got across the border. They did
But
try to hold
now
it back.
the people are reacting.
Yes, the people reacting, and now they had to respond. Okay, so here's the problem. Mexico's not been a very good neighbor. So besides remittances, which is one of the things I've commented on in the past too, is that you could take remittances. But if you build the dadgum wall, Mexico still wants to export labor, but now they can't do it unlawfully. So if we get the wall in place, Mexico will come right back to the table, say, how can we get more of our people working in the United States legally? Guess what will happen? We'll start getting money for that. That's not hard to do.
But we were doing that before.
So we get a chance to provide, to say, okay, you want visas in the United States? It's going to cost X, Y, Z. You want to pay that? You can pay that for your citizen if you want.
Okay, but
There are lots of things you can do this to recover the cost of that wall, which is really quite small. I mean, use 130 billion a year versus 5 billion. Let's say it's 25 billion, which is, well, it's 25 billion is the estimated cost. Even if it was 100 billion, that's less than 1 year's cost. So it makes sense to build the dadgum wall just to bring Mexico back to the table as a legitimate negotiator, instead of just doing what they've done in the past, which is go ahead, get across.
But why can't you just say, okay, fine? It was said at one point in time how much money we're still giving Mexico in a subsidy type deal.
Okay.
Why can't you just say, okay, fine, subsidy stops?
I mean, you
Or
have,
take the $5 million out of the subsidy, and we got $95 million we're giving you. We're going to give you 90 now, and we're going to do the 5 for the wall.
I
That's
mean,
it.
you
Trump
had-
said they were going
He
to
said
pay
it.
through the wall anyway.
Yeah, and my point,
Yeah.
that's where he could have paid. He said it.
Okay.
He said it, but he had the issues.
The point is, you got to
have
have the wall in order to make that work.
well, the previous administration don't give you.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think so.
You got to have the money first before you make the bill.
But you have to have a way to stop the flow. If you don't stop the flow, you can't stop the remittances going back, even if they just cross over with the money, because they're going to cross over fine.
Now, people with money, you won't be able to stop the flow. They'll be able to get in any day of the week
Well, okay, but the point is,
illegally.
they can pay for a visa if they want.
Yeah, I'm saying they can pay. That's the people with the money.
Yes.
But the people we're talking about right now, that's the brand. And whenever you mention that, guess what? It's the guy who's the racist that's that way, and that's how they put the
Well, that's
the
what they
category.
spin it. Yeah, I mean,
that's how they spend it. You see what I'm saying?
They're-
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, okay, fine. What is the problem, and what is the solution? I look at it from this standpoint. It's not their fault as the caravan. It's the people who allowed them to do that piece.
You know, I had the fellow
that small
that
group you were
caused me
talking
to,
about.
fellow that caused me to go.
Aiding and abetting.
Aiding and
That's another.
abetting.
That's another
Yeah,
crime.
aiding and abetting.
Aiding and abetting. Yeah.
That small group you were meeting with.
Yeah, breaking
you
and
should have
entering.
asked them. Said, okay,
Yeah.
fine. What about this caravan over here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
breaking and entering. You
But
have
see,
aiding and abetting. So, yeah.
But it's
Both
not
crimes.
it's not unlawful on their side of the border to do that.
What do you mean?
It's not unlawful for Mexico on their side of the border to promote the caravan going to crossing our border.
And I'm saying to you that the people does not allow them.
No,
They wouldn't allow that. Because that's why they're rebelling now.
Yeah.
A small group right now
but-
is saying, heck no.
In Tijuana,
only
yeah.
because
That's right.
only because we stopped them.
No.
If they had gone through, Tijuana would have stayed quiet.
No. Only because, as one would say, Trump did, but the bottom line is that
Okay.
because he might have been doing the right thing, but that other brand about the fact, no, he didn't, he's a racist. Bang. And so as a result of that, it wasn't taken that way. So he took the other initiative and said, he just made one statement. He said, hey, look here, it's going to have to stop over here now. So he stopped it for a moment, and then the people got involved in the process.
As I
the
said,
people, not the people
they-
who were ripping off the money, who were Mexicans, who were billionaires.
They were the people. The people got involved only because we stopped them. If they crossed the border, the people in Tijuana would not have risen up. They didn't rise up the first day they arrived. They
Who
rose.
stopped them? Who stopped them?
The United States government stopped them from crossing the border.
No. Trump stopped them. That's
Okay.
why the brand was already there with Trump. Not we. We would be fine because if it's a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, I elect you to do my thing, and I'm cool.
One time or another, we got to get off the whole race issue, because you notice I didn't mention race anywhere in my conversation.
Look.
But let me tell you a
Race
story.
is here.
I'm going to tell
It's
you.
loud
I'm
and
going
clear.
to tell you a story.
Wake up.
When I was
They're
a
not
kid,
black anymore,
when I was a
they're
kid,
Mexicans.
when I was about 6, 7 years old, my dad was a vice president for White Stick Manufacturing. He made ski wear, and they made ski wear at the bottom end of 52nd Avenue.
What about
And the
today?
fellow that owned that company was a guy named Harold Hirsch, who wanted to make a difference in poverty in Portland. So what he did, whenever he needed new cutters, new sewers, new packaging people, new shipping handlers, everything he needed, he would post advertising for new workers at the north end of the 52nd bus line, which is Rose City Transit in those days, and say, no experience necessary, we'll train. You go into the factory, and again, I'm 6, 7 years old at the time. You go to the factory, it's a sea of black faces. Now, why was it a sea of black faces? Because the only place the only place he advertised for workers was in the poorest district of Portland, because he wanted to make a difference.
Here we go again. I'm telling you straight up. From a historical standpoint, when you make that story the way you're talking about slave labor.
It wasn't slave labor.
I'm just trying to tell you that's the way it was. That's the way they play it.
Well, they can play it that way, but all the statistics say they're completely wrong. They obeyed all the wage rules that were in place,
I hear what
and they
you're
trained people. And I saw, even as
If
a
you
kid
could-
sitting
if-
in
if you-
sitting in the corner
I-
at executive meetings, I'm seeing white faces and black faces at that table. So they were being promoted just like anybody else in that company, because that's the way Harold Hirsch was.
But that's not what you said. I'm just saying to you, if you told that story right now today, right now, running for office, in Northeast Portland, they'd run you out. Guaranteed.
Well, then we have a problem with basic
and you could have
understanding.
$10 million bucks in
Because
your
I can't
pocket.
change the history.
No, but I'm just trying to say to you, that's what we're living in now. That's what we're talking about.
It's very polarized.
That's all I'm saying. We just so the idea is to talk to the solution. How does it impact everybody's pocketbook? We got homeless folks. Those homeless folks that I see out there are not black. They're not even Mexicans. They're white faces.
So why are you
Yeah.
mentioning their race?
No, I'm just saying that's one of the components you have to deal with in the district that you're running in.
How about if I just deal with the issue that they're poor?
No. We're talking about Earl Blumenauer. Look at Earl Blumenauer. Look how he runs his race. Go check it out.
Right now, you've got to summarize.
We got to summarize. Summarization
Okay.
is this. We're going to continue this conversation. It's very, very important. We're running the race right now. We got two good folks who are running for office.
Right.
And we welcome the other entities to come to the table to talk about the solution that we have. That's where we are.
There we are.
And it's like anything else. We're all creatures of our exposure. And we're all different.
And I announced my run the day after I lost.
That's right. Good enough. Awesome. Same thing?
Well, I'm
You getting
still
there.
thinking about
Okay,
it. I'm
good.
getting there.
So that's where we are. Good show.
And we're thank the
Good show.
crew
thank you,
for
Bruce.
making
All
this
right.
possible.
Richard.
Good enough.
Thank
thank
you.
Thank you very much, folks. We'll be here next time around. And join me on the Oregon Voters Digest. Guess what? We're going to be talking about Dan Meek and campaign finance reform Sunday, which is an interesting piece.
It was Jesse Ventura that won with the independent vote back in what, Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Jesse Ventura.
And he said he could win the presidency now, which is not possible. But,
That's right. But everybody's running right now, see?
Yeah.
You got 1,000 people running right now.
There you go.
But they can't find any candidates for Trump. Anyway, here we go again. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah,
It was a
right.
good show. And thank you very, very much. We'd like to welcome the crew again. And like I said, in all due respect, enjoy your holidays. It's going to be
yeah,
awesome.
right.
We're not going to be back until next time around, but enjoy yourself. We had quite a 2 years of running for office. Let's get into this next 2 years and
I
get
think
the
it's-
kind of leadership that we need to solve our problems in our country.
Hard
and
work
especially in
running
Oregon.
for office.
That's some hard work. And I want to take my hat off to both of you for running.
Yeah.